value the time you take out from your busy, crazy lives right now to be here. And we gave you an aerobic workout without any extra charge or anything. So you tied in the gym and also service learning. So that's like a great moment. I want to, first of all, thank Crystal and the Museum of Tolerance for opening their home to us for today. What they do is so critical, and the fact that they're sharing it with you as educators and parents is all the more meaningful. So by being here today, you accepted mission not impossible, but very, very challenging, because America is made up of more than people who just shop. About 10 years ago, I was watching Jay Leno do his man in the street interviews, and he went up to somebody, or many people, and said, "Why do we celebrate July 4th? And the woman said, "Oh, I know, because of the sales." And he went up to another person and said, "What did Betsy Ross create?" And she said, "Cupcakes." Okay. So even though we're laughing, we almost could be crying, because America doesn't survive without understanding our history. Democracy cannot exist if we don't understand history and transmit it to our children in a way that they can absorb and value and use. We learn from history. We don't forget history. And also, not all American citizens just shop and eat cupcakes. All of them are entitled to vote, but many are hungry and they're homeless and they're ignored and they're denied their rights. Young people today are more focused on taking a selfie than on seeing the person in front of them, or more importantly, seeing who isn't in front of them, who's not in the conversation, and who's not in the room. So it matters tremendously that you each individually are here today. It matters so much because you are bringing up the next generation. As Coretta Scott King said, freedom is never really won. You earn it and you win it in every generation. And we have created a world that we are bequeathing to our young people that, as I've said, is quite challenged. And it's vital and essential that young people learn to respect each other and to include each other. And service learning is the methodology by which we can attach what we need to know with what we need to feel. And when you feel something, you can do something about it. So service is the heart of service learning, and learning is the mind of service learning. And that's why we're all here. And I hope that you guys can take tidbits and vital tools back to your schools and share it with as many people as possible, because it's so essential. So on behalf of our country and our planet, all of us at ECSL welcome you today, and thank you for being here. I want to say that there's the program is really dense and really rich today. It's unbelievably fantastic, so we hope you'll enjoy all of it. We're going to go on a tour. Crystal and the Museum of Tolerance is going to make some opening framing for you. We'll be going on a tour, then we'll be coming back and doing activities that Marissa and Tanina, who are like angels, have come down to earth with information and insights and clarity. This is really easy to absorb and even easier to take back to your classrooms, so it's totally vital. We'll be working in here, so that's sort of the game plan for the day. In terms of how these young people can get engaged in this voting and electoral process, there are many, many entry points. Fran Lapidus is here from League of Women Voters today with lots of information and tools that are available to you. But one of the easiest ways is there's candidate forums all over LA within the next 2 months. And students from high school and above, students can volunteer at these forums. And so those will be posted in this room. You can see where there's some. And League of Women Voters has them on their website also. The key thing is for students who might not really be, younger children, K8, K7 might not be as interested in candidate names and who's running for Attorney General and things like that, but they will care about the issues that these people represent. They'll care about poverty. They'll care about how their stance on immigration. They'll care about climate. So that's an entry point, and that's why these candidate forums are helpful, and it's a great tool in your classroom to focus on issues rather than just personalities. with that, I'm going to turn it over to Crystal so she can introduce you to some of the ideas that are available in the museum today. And again, thank you guys all for coming so much.
So my name is Crystal Torres Codovias. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am the director of the Tools for Tolerance for Educators program here at the museum. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here with us. You're going to get kind of today a very tiny snippet of the work that we do all the time, all year long. And I hope that, how many folks have come to our professional development at the museum before? So everyone take a look there. You can talk to them later. We run professional development all year long for educators in a range of different issues and topic areas. So I hope that coming here today, getting a little inside peek of the type of things that we do will encourage you and inspire you to come back, bring colleagues, bring schools, and I can talk more about those opportunities at the end of the day. But I just want to share a little bit of grounding as to why we do the work we do and how we go about doing it. So the museum is the educational arm of the Simon Wiesenthal Center. Does anybody know who Simon Wiesenthal was? I see some heads nodding. Can I hear some popcorn if you don't have food in your mouth? Ideas or pieces of information about Simon Wiesenthal?
He was a Nazi hunter.
Yep, absolutely. Colloquially known as a Nazi hunter. He got that name because basically he was a survivor of the Holocaust. He lost over 80 members of his immediate family in the Holocaust, during the Holocaust. Miraculously, him and his wife survived. Before the Holocaust, he was actually an architect by trade. He was not the Nazi hunter. He was an architect. And what he realized coming out of that experience was that he couldn't go back to being an architect. He decided that what he saw was that a lot of folks who had participated in particularly heinous human rights violations kind of just walked off, right? They kind of went somewhere else, they fled, and people were just going to leave them there. And so he made it his life's mission to find folks and seek some sort of justice for those people who had gone and fled across the world. And I say that pretty loosely, some sort of justice, because this was kind of a new thing that he was doing. He really started to define what it means to look at international war crimes and who is accountable and how do people work together in order to actually hold those norms and those laws globally. So that's the work that Simon Wiesenthal did. And when the founders of our organization asked whether we could use his name as the namesake for our organization, he said yes under one condition, and that condition is that we would constantly be committed to education. For him, he was very particular in what education meant, right? He said, you know, if you're gonna be a Holocaust museum, if you're gonna do facts and figures and things like that about the Holocaust, that's great. I'll sign a letter of support for you, and that's it, but you can't have my name. However, if you're going to do what you say you're going to do, which is serve as a place for folks to actually engage in meaningful conversation, the kind of education that happens between humans when they get to know each other that actually prevents this from happening again, then you can have my name. So that's what the museum does. As the educational arm of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, we serve as a platform, a container, a place to hold hard dialogue, to look at things that make us feel something, and then talk about what do we do with that feeling? How do we move forward? How do we recognize and reconcile things that might be hard for us to see now, right? With some of the legacy and the memory that we get to hold as a museum. So we have been doing these professional development programs primarily for educators and law enforcement since 1996. We've served now over 240,000 professionals, and the number is growing. You all are making it higher, but also the needs stay, right? The needs are they're shifting, or they change, they shape shift, but the reality of conversation and the need to have dialogue is always ever present. We're always at the tip of needing to have the next conversation, and that's what we're looking for. We have a few goals when we do this, and I'm just going to go through this very quickly because I want to get us started. Can I have one person read this statement out loud. It requires kind of an auditorium voice. So if someone's willing to test it, go ahead, Josh.
Through state-of-the-art exhibits, the Museum of Tolerance lets millions of visitors become witnesses to history, puts a spotlight on the discrimination and inequities that are still part of our social fabric, and challenges us to confront prejudice, including our own.
Thank you. So this is kind of a three-pronged goal for us, and it's called a goal, but really I think about it as an agreement. The first piece of that, as I'm sure some of you picked up, is this idea of being a witness to history. This is a part of the contract that we get to provide as the cultural institution of a museum, right? We are not under any false understanding that no one has ever heard of the Holocaust, that no one has had an experience, has read a book, has watched a movie, has done something to learn about the Holocaust. However, we know that there is a cultural significance to being in a museum, to witnessing something with your colleagues, to thinking about it in this particular kind of frame, in this particular container. And that's what we call the witness, the position of developing witness to something. The way that you'll see some of the exhibit points come up downstairs, the stories that we're telling are from the perspective of developing what it means to witness. So I'm going to ask you to pay attention to some of that. The reason why we know that the skill of witnessing becomes important is because of this next part of putting a spotlight on the discrimination and equities that are still part of our social fabric, right? It's our belief that once you witness, you never stop being a witness, that you can start to pick up, I know you all already are, really on the ground around what's happening now, what are the issues that we need to bring up forth, that we need to talk about, that remind me of something else. This is the part of the contract that we ask you all to really step in for, because we know we're here, we have an idea of history, we can bring up themes that will resonate. However, you all are working with students and families all the time, so you know what's actually in people's lived experiences today. So please bring those into our conversations that we have in the museum and in the discussion space. I'm going to pause while people who are cuter than me take space. The last piece of our kind of goal contract is this agreement that we all hold, that we know that when we actually look at history and we pay attention to what's happening now, we merge those things. It requires from each of us individually to be very intentional about confronting our own stuff, right? Looking at what is coming up for me. Why is this hard? Why have I put this away and never brought it back up again? I knew that happened, but for some reason I decided not to think about it, right? Really holding up that mirror as to what are my own prejudices and biases that stop me, enable me, act as a deflector in some way to put me in this mode of witness and action in the world that I'm surrounded by. So that's the work that we'll all be doing together, and that's kind of our goal for everyone through this experience, is to lean into both the world around us and our colleagues, but mostly to ourselves, because we know that that's where the most powerful work happens. And once kind of that knob is turned in yourself, then you can't really stop it, right? So a last thing for me that I wanted to share with you all is that we're okay with phones. We know you have them. I have two. You see me like going back and forth. We encourage you, some of the material downstairs can be intense. It can be triggering. We encourage you to try to stay present. I know that there is a response sometimes when something is hard to, like the phone becomes a way for us to escape. And that's okay. If that's what you need to do, please go ahead and do it. If you can stay with us and being present without your phone, I also, there's a grow zone there that I encourage people to step into, if you can. When you're downstairs, you won't be able to get service. So if there's something that is urgent, you have children that are needing you, you need to check in on something, please let me or the facilitators know, and we can let you know where you can go to get access. But just FYI, once you're down there, it's a blocked out zone. You can take pictures of things in the exhibits. However, we ask that you provide context for what you take a picture of, right? So if you're gonna send it on Twitter or send it to someone else and it's one piece of something, give us a little bit more, let the world know a little bit more about what that piece belongs to, because we wanna make sure that folks have a full experience or not taking information and displacing it in other ways. So those are my only requests for you all. You're going to go with our wonderful facilitators downstairs to our exhibits. It's a very, like I said, this is like a bite-sized thing. So if it feels like we're kind of cutting stuff off, we are cutting stuff off, and we encourage you to come back so you can do the rest of it. Our two facilitators are Shahira and Suzanne, who's back there. You heard her. You'll see her soon.
Morning.
Our facilitators are, I call them the heartbeat of our program. They keep us on time, but they also keep us alive in terms of the soul space. They'll be folks who are, when we come back up, leading the dialogue and discussion. That's kind of the processing moment of like, whoa, what did we just do right now? What did we witness? What's coming up? So I highly encourage you to, in the little bit of time that you have with them, to engage and get to know them. That being said, I'm going to hand it to them so that they can let you know what's next.